At 6:12 a.m. on January 29, 1944, Private First Class Thomas "Tommy" Hale lay pressed into the frozen mud outside the village of San Vittore, Italy, staring at a narrow mountain road that cut through olive groves and broken stone walls. The fog was low and heavy, swallowing sound, turning the valley into a damp, gray tunnel. Somewhere beyond it, a German SDKFZ 250 half-track was moving toward the American lines. Tommy could hear it before he saw it, the metallic clatter of tracks, the uneven rhythm of an engine climbing in second gear. He had no bazooka, no mines, no anti-tank rifle. What he did have was a length of steel cable scavenged from a destroyed telephone line and a folding entrenching tool, jammed into the earth at a precise angle. The U.S. Army Field Manual said this would never work. In the next minute, it would. Tommy Hale was 19 years old, from Wheeling, West Virginia. The son of a coal loader who taught him two things before the war: how to spot when something heavy was about to fail, and how to stay alive underground when rules stopped making sense. In the mines, cables snapped, beams cracked, and equipment broke down daily. The men who survived were the ones who improvised. You didn't wait for approval. You didn't quote regulations. You fixed the problem with whatever was in your hands, or you died. That mindset followed Tommy to Italy. He enlisted in March 1943. The recruiter talked about training and teamwork. What Tommy got was 6 weeks of rushed instruction, a rifle older than he was, and a boat to North Africa. By December, he was fighting his way up the Italian peninsula with the 36th Infantry Division, slogging through mud that swallowed boots and hillsides that turned every step into a target. The Germans defended Italy differently than anywhere else. They didn't need to attack much. They let terrain and reconnaissance do the killing. German reconnaissance vehicles were the real terror. Light, fast, armored, just enough to ignore rifle fire. They prowled American positions every morning and evening. They didn't stay to fight. They didn't need to. They drove through, mapped positions, counted men, and disappeared. 12 hours later, artillery arrived. Accurate, relentless, deadly. By mid-January 1944, Tommy's company had lost 19 men without ever seeing a German infantry assault, just shells falling where scout vehicles had looked. On January 11th, a half-track rolled along the ridge road at dawn. Corporal Ray Mendez fired at it out of frustration. The rounds sparked and bounced. The half-track's machine gun answered. Mendez was dead before the medic reached him. January 16th, Private Lewis O'Connor tried to rush a scout car with a grenade. It detonated short. The 20mm cannon erased him. January 22nd. 3 men died in their foxholes after artillery landed exactly where a German vehicle had stopped the night before. Patterns like that stick with you. They teach you that doctrine doesn't stop steel. American manuals were clear. To stop light armor, you used mines, bazookas, or dedicated anti-tank teams. Tommy's company had 1 bazooka with 2 rockets. Mines were reserved for planned defenses. The half-tracks came when and where they wanted. The math was simple. Approved solutions were unavailable. Unapproved ones were all that remained. The idea came to Tommy while repairing a broken field phone line after a barrage. The cable was steel, tough, designed to take tension. He remembered watching a coal cart derail when a snapped cable wrapped around its axle. The cart didn't stop gently. It flipped hard. The thought stuck. Vehicles didn't need to be penetrated to be destroyed. They just needed to lose control at speed. He brought it up once, quietly, to a sergeant. The response was immediate. Absolutely not. Unauthorized obstacles endanger friendly troops. End of discussion. 2 days later, another man died to a half-track. Tommy stopped asking. On the night of January 28th, the fog rolled in thick enough to hide movement. Artillery thundered miles away, a constant background roar. Tommy took a coil of cable from a wrecked communications truck and his entrenching tool. He moved alone. The road he chose was predictable, hugging the slope where German vehicles always slowed to negotiate a bend. He planted the shovel on the downhill side, driving it deep until it wouldn't move. The other end went into a tree root on the opposite bank. He strung the cable at exactly axle height, tight enough to sing when plucked. He buried it lightly with mud and leaves, invisible unless you knew it was there. He crawled back before dawn, heart pounding, hands numb. If discovered, he'd face punishment. If it failed, Nothing would change. He lay awake, listening. At 6:10 a.m., the engine noise returned. The half-track emerged from the fog, moving cautiously but confident, commander exposed, scanning the slopes. It accelerated slightly as it reached the bend. The cable caught the left front axle at speed. The effect was instant. The axle locked. Momentum carried the vehicle forward. The half-track lurched, tilted, then rolled sideways into the embankment with a violent crash of metal and men. Weapons flew. The engine screamed, then died. Tommy was already running, shouting. Other soldiers followed, rifles up. One German lay motionless, thrown clear. Another crawled out, dazed, hands raised. The vehicle was disabled beyond repair. No bazooka, no mine. Just cable and gravity. Officers arrived minutes later. Questions were asked. Answers were vague. The wreck told the story, even if nobody wanted to hear it. Scout vehicles weren't invincible. They were just machines. By that afternoon, word spread quietly. Not orders, not memos, just whispers. That night, another cable went up on another road, and the balance, slowly, began to shift. Asterisk by nightfall on January 29, 1944. The wrecked German half-track had already been stripped of anything useful. Ammunition gone. Radio smashed. Documents taken to intelligence. Officially, the vehicle had been disabled during routine contact. Unofficially, everyone in Tommy Hale's platoon knew something had changed. German scout vehicles did not simply crash on mountain roads without reason, and yet no one spoke openly about how it happened. Not because of secrecy from the enemy, but because the real threat came from their own chain of command. The U.S. Army had rules for everything. Obstacles required approval. Engineering units were responsible for anti-vehicle measures. Improvised traps were considered dangerous, unpredictable, and a liability. That logic made sense in classrooms and manuals. It made less sense in muddy Italian valleys where approved tools didn't exist. Tommy said nothing. Silence was safer than recognition. The Germans noticed the change before the Americans did. On February 1st, a second reconnaissance vehicle failed to return from the same sector. This one didn't flip completely. The cable snapped after impact, but not before wrenching the front axle sideways and throwing the driver into a stone wall. The crew abandoned the vehicle and escaped on foot. When German recovery teams examined the wreckage, they found no blast damage, no penetration, just twisted metal and scraped housings where something thin and strong had struck at speed. German reconnaissance doctrine depended on confidence. Vehicles moved quickly because speed kept them alive. Once speed disappeared, so did their advantage. For the first time in weeks, patrols slowed. Meanwhile, the idea spread the way forbidden knowledge always does in the military. Quietly, privately, after dark, private. Frank Delgado rigged a cable across a farm road 2 kilometers south. Corporal Eddie Russo set one near a river crossing. They used whatever they had: telephone wire, winch cable, even doubled barbed wire twisted together. The measurements stayed the same. Axle height, tight, concealed, always removable, never left in place longer than necessary. This wasn't recklessness. It was evolving craft. The third vehicle hit on February 4th. This time, it flipped cleanly. 2 Germans died. 1 was captured. The prisoner was confused, shaken, unable to explain how a routine patrol had ended upside down in a ditch. He insisted there was no explosion, just a sudden stop, then chaos. Intelligence officers took notes. None of it fit their expectations. Asterisk American casualties dropped almost immediately. Artillery still came, but less accurately. Reconnaissance vehicles no longer lingered. Some roads went unused entirely. Soldiers noticed the difference without fully understanding why. Less whistling in the air. Fewer names added to the list. That was when the officers started paying attention. Captain Howard Kessler, company commander, was not a reckless man. He believed in discipline. He believed in manuals, but he also read casualty reports. By February 6th, his company had gone 9 days without losing a man to reconnaissance-directed fire. That hadn't happened since they landed in Italy. He asked questions, carefully, indirectly. What changed? No one answered directly. Soldiers aren't disloyal, but they understand survival. Finally, a sergeant mentioned road obstacles. Nothing specific, just enough to point Kessler in the right direction. He found one that night, a cable, stretched across a narrow trail, barely visible. Properly cleanly installed, professional in its simplicity. Kessler stood there for a long moment, staring at it. This was exactly the kind of thing doctrine warned against, and exactly the kind of thing saving his men. Asterisk. He didn't order it removed. Instead, he ordered the road closed for engineering reasons and told no one else. That decision, doing nothing, was the most important command choice he made. That month, German commanders were less flexible. By mid-February, reports of inexplicable vehicle losses reached division intelligence. Engineers dismissed them at first. Mechanical failures, driver error, poor roads, but the pattern was undeniable. Same terrain, same damage, no explosives, no gunfire. Something else was happening. A lieutenant from a reconnaissance battalion insisted on examining the wrecks personally. He found grooves, scars, wire fragments embedded in grease and mud. Thin, strong, deliberately placed, not accidents. Traps. Orders went out quietly. Reduce speed, dismount scouts to inspect roads, advance with caution. Caution killed efficiency. Reconnaissance patrols that once covered 10 kilometers now managed 4. Time spent inspecting roads was time Americans spent digging, moving, preparing. Artillery fire based on outdated information missed its targets. The front didn't go quiet, but it became less lethal back in the American lines. The method refined itself. Soldiers learned which cables snapped and which held. Telephone wire was too thin. Single-strand barbed wire sometimes failed. Twisted pairs worked better. Anchors mattered. Trees were best. Shovels worked if driven deep and angled properly. Mud was an ally. Fog was cover. Everything was temporary. Everything was DENIABL. No paperwork. No reports. Just practice. By February 20th, the tactic had spread beyond Tommy's company. Men rotated to other units. They talked, showed, demonstrated, not as rebellion, but as responsibility. Nobody claimed ownership. Ownership got you punished. The numbers told the story anyway. January 31. Men lost a reconnaissance-directed fire. February 9, Division Headquarters noticed. Analysts credited improved camouflage and defensive discipline. The explanation was comfortable. It didn't challenge doctrine. It didn't require uncomfortable questions. Then an engineer unit requested clarification. Why were German vehicles flipping without blast damage? That question reached the wrong desk. An investigation team arrived on February 24th. They toured positions, interviewed officers, observed roads. They found nothing because nothing stayed in place long enough to be found. The cables went up at night and came down before dawn. Traps that left no signature. The report concluded enemy driver error combined with poor road conditions was responsible. Case closed. Unofficially, everyone at the front knew better. Tommy Hale never took credit. He didn't teach formally. He demonstrated once, when asked, then stepped back. He understood something important. Once an idea spreads, it no longer belongs to you. It belongs to whoever needs it next. By the end of February 1944, German reconnaissance units in the sector had lost confidence. Vehicles moved like nervous animals. Heads down, speed gone. The initiative once theirs had slipped away, taken by men with no authority and no permission. And that was the most dangerous thing of all, because when soldiers prove they can solve problems better than manuals, the war stops being predictable. Asterisk. By early March 1944, the war in the Italian hills had changed its rhythm. It was still violent, still exhausting, but something fundamental had shifted. The Germans no longer owned the dawn. Reconnaissance vehicles that once roamed freely now crept forward, stopping, reversing, sending dismounted scouts ahead on foot. That caution saved German lives, but it cost them something more important: speed. And in modern war, speed is information. American infantry felt the difference immediately. Artillery barrages lost their precision. Machine gun nests that once seemed to anticipate every movement now fired blind. Patrols returned with fewer casualties. The front line breathed for the first time in months, and that made higher command nervous. Colonel Richard Bowman, operations officer at division headquarters, noticed the numbers first. Casualty curves don't lie. In January, reconnaissance-related deaths were steady and high. In February, they dropped sharply in specific sectors, always the same ones. Bowman didn't care why at first. He cared that the drop didn't align with any authorized change in equipment, doctrine, or force structure. That meant something unofficial was happening. Unofficial solutions were dangerous, not because they didn't work, but because they proved the system wrong. Bowman ordered a quiet inquiry. No formal inspections, no written questions, just conversations. Officers were asked if they'd noticed anything unusual. Most responded carefully. A few said nothing at all. Infantry officers understood the unspoken rule. If something works and doesn't cause trouble, don't drag it into the light. But secrets in the Army never stay buried forever. On March 7th, a German reconnaissance car flipped less than a kilometer from an American command post. The wreck was impossible to ignore. No mine crater, no blast marks. The axle was bent sideways like a broken bone. An engineer officer crawled underneath and found what others had missed: a shallow groove. Cut cleanly into the metal wire, something thin, strong, and placed deliberately. The engineer reported his finding up the chain. The report didn't vanish. Division headquarters reacted fast. Orders went out reminding units that unauthorized obstacles were prohibited. Engineering tasks were to be performed only by designated personnel. Commanders were to ensure compliance immediately. The language was firm but vague. No one mentioned cables. No one mentioned axles. The message was clear enough down at the company level. The order was read aloud and promptly ignored, not out of defiance. Out of arithmetic. Men counted days without losing friends. They counted nights without incoming shells. The equation was simple. Cable meant survival. Paper meant nothing. Tommy Hale heard about the order secondhand. He was cleaning his rifle when a sergeant muttered that the suits were getting nervous. Tommy said nothing. He'd never intended this to become a movement. He just couldn't watch men die to a problem with an obvious solution. Captain Kessler called him in that evening. The captain didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He closed the tent flap, poured 2 cups of bitter coffee, and spoke quietly. "Did you start this?" Tommy didn't deny it. Lying would insult them both. Kessler nodded slowly. "You understand I'm supposed to shut it down, yes, sir? And you understand I'm not going to?" That was all that needed to be said. Instead of stopping the practice, Kessler did something smarter. He controlled it. He limited who knew. He restricted where and when cables were placed. He made sure removal was as deliberate as installation. The difference between chaos and innovation is supervision. German command, meanwhile, was running out of patience. Reconnaissance losses were now officially attributed to enemy obstacles. That admission forced change. Engineers were ordered to precede patrols. Infantry escorts became mandatory. Vehicles carried wire cutters and probes. The result was predictable. Patrols slowed even further. Routes narrowed. Some areas went unobserved entirely. Information gaps appeared in German maps. Artillery fire became reactive instead of preemptive. For the first time since the campaign began, American infantry gained the advantage of surprise. By March 15th, the tactic had spread to adjacent regiments, not by order. By example, soldiers rotated, units relieved one another. The method traveled in pockets and whispers. No names attached, no credit claimed. Then came the accident. On March 18th, a cable was left in place too long. A night patrol returned early. In the dark, one soldier tripped. He wasn't injured seriously, but the incident reached the wrong ears. Safety officers demanded answers. The investigation found nothing conclusive, but it hardened opposition at higher levels. A formal directive followed. All unauthorized obstacles were to be removed immediately. Non-compliance would result in disciplinary action. This time, the order was specific. Kessler gathered his NCO. He laid out the reality. We can obey this order and lose men. Or we can disobey quietly and save them. Choose carefully. No one hesitated. The cables stayed, but procedures tightened. Routes were marked mentally. Installations were temporary and timed. The practice became professional. Tommy watched from the sidelines now. His idea had outgrown him. He was just another rifleman again, which suited him fine. German units adapted to, but adaptation has limits. Vehicles designed for speed cannot crawl forever. The psychological effect mattered as much as the physical one. Crews feared roads. Fear changes behavior. Behavior changes outcomes by the end of March. German reconnaissance effectiveness in the sector had dropped by nearly half. American casualties from indirect fire followed the same trend. Someone at Army level noticed an intelligence. Summary dated March 28th included a line that stood out. Enemy reconnaissance appears degraded due to unidentified countermeasures at the small unit level. Unidentified was the key word. Command could tolerate unidentified success. It could not tolerate identified disobedience. The war moved on, as wars do. New offensives were planned. Units rotated. The cables remained unseen and undocumented. Doing their quiet work in the dark, Tommy Hale survived March. Many others did too, not because of better weapons or new doctrine, but because one soldier had looked at a problem and refused to accept that the manual had the final answer. By April 1944, the Italian front no longer looked the same on intelligence maps. Lines hadn't moved much, but the spaces between them had changed. The gray zones, where German reconnaissance once flowed freely, were now irregular and uncertain. Patrol reports came back incomplete. Artillery fire arrived late or not at all. The enemy still fought hard. But the invisible advantage they once held had been quietly stripped away by wire, mud, and men who refused to wait for permission. Division headquarters understood something was happening. They simply chose not to name it. Colonel Bowman received updated casualty tables in early April. The numbers were impossible to argue with. Units that had suffered consistent losses from reconnaissance-directed fire were now reporting near zero. No new anti-tank weapons had arrived. No doctrinal updates had been issued, and yet the results were there in black ink. The only logical explanation was also the most inconvenient one. Junior soldiers had solved a problem the system had failed to address. That kind of truth is dangerous in a hierarchical organization. It undermines authority. It questions training. It suggests that innovation does not always flow downward from headquarters, but upward from foxholes. So Bowman made a decision that would never appear in any after-action report. He did nothing. No investigations. No endorsements. No reprimands. The official explanation credited improved fieldcraft, better camouflage, and heightened alertness. The paperwork closed cleanly. Quiet success was allowed to continue as long as it stayed quiet. By late April, the cables had spread far beyond Tommy Hale's sector. Not everywhere. Not all at once, but enough. German reconnaissance losses across central Italy rose sharply in non-combat incidents. Vehicles overturned, axles failed. Crews abandoned intact machines out of fear. German reports blamed poor roads, partisan activity, and bad luck. None of those explanations were satisfying, but none pointed clearly to a single cause either. That ambiguity protected everyone. In May 1944, Allied forces broke through at Cassino. The front moved north. Units advanced into new terrain. The roads changed. The cables followed. Tommy Hale never received orders to teach the method. He never gave a briefing. He never wrote it down. But when new soldiers asked questions at night, when someone pointed at a coil of wire and raised an eyebrow, Tommy would nod once and show them where to place it. That was enough. He was promoted to corporal in June. No citation, no mention of cables, just time and grade and survival. By August, the Italian campaign entered a new phase. German forces withdrew toward prepared lines. Reconnaissance vehicles became rarer. The tactic's usefulness faded, not because it failed, but because the conditions that made it essential no longer existed. The war moved on. Tommy Hale finished the war in northern Italy. He crossed rivers, took hills, and watched men fall to problems no wire could fix. In November 1945, he went home to West Virginia with a duffel bag, a combat infantry badge, and no stories he wanted to tell. He went back to the mines for a while. Then he took a job repairing industrial equipment. Cable, steel, tension, the same principles. He married, had 2 children, lived a quiet life. When asked about the war, he said it was cold, muddy, and loud. That was all the Army, however, did remember without remembering him in 1948. A group of engineers compiling post-war lessons learned included a brief section on improvised vehicle obstacles. It cited field observations from the Italian campaign. Wire placed at axle height. Anchored solidly, temporary. effective against light reconnaissance vehicles at speed. In 1949, the concept appeared in an updated field manual, sanitized, formalized, authorized, no names attached. Just a technique, as if it had always existed. Modern militaries still teach variations of it, not always with wire. Sometimes with cables, sometimes with advanced materials. The principle remains the same. Control momentum. Attack mobility. Use simplicity against complexity. Tommy Hale never knew that his illegal idea became official doctrine. And he wouldn't have cared in 1972. A military researcher studying German vehicle losses noticed a statistical anomaly in early Nietzsche's 1944. Most shrugged. A few smiled and changed the subject. One man mentioned cables and mud. The researcher found Tommy through an old unit roster. He called once. Tommy listened politely. He confirmed nothing directly. Just said that soldiers did what they had to do. The paper was published with a footnote, crediting unidentified infantry NCOs. That was as close as the truth ever came to print. Tommy Hale died in 1989, quietly, in his sleep. His obituary listed his service, his job history, his family. Nothing about Italy, nothing about wire, but the men who survived because of that wire remembered. They remembered mornings without artillery, roads that suddenly felt safer. The moment when a machine designed to kill them failed, not because of superior firepower, but because someone understood how systems break. War is often remembered through generals and grand strategies, but it is won again and again by corporals in the mud who see a problem and refuse to accept that the answer does not exist. Sometimes the most important innovations are the ones no one is supposed to use. Sometimes the people who change the war go home without medals, without recognition, without stories, because the story was never about them. It was about survival. And that is how an unauthorized idea, strung across a road in the dark, quietly rewrote the rules of war.